very, very clean. What's going on, guys? It's Tommy, and I told you guys last week that we're going to be talking about off-road prep and getting trucks ready to go off-road. So we're going to check up on my truck right now. It's getting ready. So here she is. She's getting worked on. There's like a laundry list of stuff that I got to go through. And the guys, literally, I gave the guys a list of what to do. Starting from, we got to replace these bump stops. I had some damage to these ones, so these are going to get replaced. The shocks are going to get charged and make sure they're good. I'm getting some squeaking and rattling from the devers, so we're going to make sure all the hardware is tightened on them. What do you think? Is there deflection on the front?
Here, come look.
Uh-oh, that's a bad fucking sign. That's not good. That's not good.
Not supposed to do that.
Well, a good thing I have a rebuild kit for it. So there you go. So Eric's checking. As you put a crowbar here, you're seeing that there's deflection in that ball joint, and that shouldn't be there. That should be very tight and very hard to move. So that's why we're doing the prep. So this ball joint, I have, luckily I have one here. Do you think these have to be replaced as well? Might as well when it's out?
Well, when we separate that, it'll give us a better idea if the
Okay.
rod ends to be replaced.
Any idea what the squeak in the rear was?
Your U-bolts were pretty big.
Probably, that could be it.
I went ahead and cleaned everything and
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so what's the list? The list is the back end, the upper control arm needs to have these joints checked. We're going to check the tie rods that we mentioned earlier, the lower shock bolt. Oh, so Patrick installed a Mishimoto, I don't know if you guys can see it in there, upgraded transmission cooler. So there you go, you can kind of see that, and there you go. So it's an upgraded factory location trans cooler, so that's gonna allow the trans hopefully to run cooler so I don't blow through another trans. So that's another item. He's obviously gonna check my brakes, make sure we're good there. It looks like we have pretty good pad left, but he's gonna double check that. Front shocks, again, he's gonna double check the pressure on them, make sure that's good. I have some dust caps, new ones are gonna go on here, just that's very small, nothing major. Sway bars, he's gonna check all this. And then the guys over at SPD have sent me a new resonator. So that little piece, this piece in the middle is gonna get replaced with an equal length resonator. Hey guys, so we're out here testing the new SPD Resonator Delete, and I think it sounds fantastic. It's not too obtrusive, it's not too loud, it's not droning inside the vehicle, but it gives it a nice little bump over what stock is, and I really like the sound of it. What do you guys think? So the checklist of items that we usually look for when we go off-roading is simple. You start at the safety aspect. So you make sure your brakes are going to work. You make sure that you have enough pad life. All that stuff is there. You make sure that the suspension components are up to date and like the maintenance is done. So there's no excess of play in them. For instance, we'll do something where we will grab, if this was a front wheel, we would grab the wheel at a 3 and 9 position and then rock it back and forth. So when we rock the wheel back and forth on a front wheel, again, not this rear wheel, you'll see if there's any play in the bearings up front. And also you'll do one at 3 and 9, and you'll do one at 12 and 6. And you'll see if the wheel has any excess of play. So that's one of the things we'll check up front. And then in the rear, again, same thing, you'll go through the suspension components. You'll see, is the shock mounts. So up here, you wanna make sure that the shock mounts don't have any cracks or any issues with the hardware or any cracks. Down here, same thing. You want to make sure that the shock mount doesn't have any cracks or any issues where this bolt goes and where it attaches to, because that's the only location that's going to attach into the vehicle. You want to make sure that none of your wires or anything have gone in the way of, for instance, this pad strikes here. So if a wire was in that area, that would be a no-go. You make sure that all the breathers and all the hoses are attached. You can see there's dust already coming off it from previous trips. But yeah, you want to make sure that all these bolts holding the leaf spring are tightened in place. The reservoir, everything is tight in place. So we always put a wrench on these items. I was complaining about a squeak and a groan from the back end. These bolts, which are called U-bolts, which tighten up down here, these U-bolts were loose. A couple weeks ago I did my oil for the differential, the center transfer case, the front differential, and the transmission. So that's all done. And then again, you just want to make sure safety-wise, so suspension's good, brakes are good. You want to make sure that the engine's good. So you're going to check the oil, make sure your oil's changed. You want to make sure that the service is done, coolant is done, because you don't want to be off-road pushing the truck and the truck overheats. Ironically enough, when you're pushing the truck very hard off-road, when it's hot, I usually turn off my AC, because if you're revving it very high and the AC's on, it'll cause the AC clutch sometimes to go out, which leaves you kind of out of luck for the whole trip. So we do brakes, we do suspension, we do engine. The other thing is exhaust is one thing that always has an issue off-road. So if the exhaust is not securely fastened, so you can see on mine, I'm actually missing these rear mounts, which they no longer have. That can again be an issue because it might jiggle around too much and cause it to separate. So yeah, the exhaust mounts, making sure we have them. Probably like I still have the ones back here, but the ones up here are gone because that bracket that used to be there we removed. After the truck's good to go, you need to make sure you are good to go. You might get used to certain things that where you live, it's easy to find. It could be anything. It could be like heartburn medicine. It could be whatever, like if your stomach doesn't really feel well. So I always recommend taking stuff from where you live and where you are comfortable with and it's readily available. Get it from there and pack it in your kit. So I have my first aid kit, I have a survival kit, and I have like a medicine bag. So we're gonna look at tires, how it's wearing. You can see obviously these tires have been used. There's nothing wrong with that. But you wanna make sure you don't have any gashes on the sidewall, any major defects or issues with the rim or the tire. And then another thing is lighting and bumpers, making sure your bumpers are on. And one trip, I ended up messing up my front light. So one trip, this light bar up here, so you got one light bar on the side, and then I got the main one over here. So this light bar ended up knocking loose and banging around. So that's not fun. So you make sure that these hardware for all these lights are tight. And the reason why you see water in here is when we did our Mojave trip a month back, I submerged this whole truck into like up here in water. So yeah, that got a little bit of water in it. So this Bronco is one of our preload Broncos that we're doing for Galpin Ford. We put the tires on, or actually we put the wheels are a classic looking wheel that looks retro like in the 80s. We kept the factory tires just because we're gonna go with 35s. There's no reason. We're still gonna level the truck out so it sits a little bit higher up in the front and it's even with the rear. Quite nice. We put some Baja Designs XL Sport lights up here. These things are awesome, very bright, and they're gonna give you some coverage down the road. Another thing we did, well, not one thing that we did, but we spoke about the wheels. So offset is how far the wheels will stick in or out of the fender. The factory offset is very conservative, meaning it's inbound. So the tires sit pretty far inbound. I think they sit even further in than this edge right here, where you can see there, the edge of the bumper. These wheels have a more aggressive offset. So these wheels are sitting further out on the fender. So these wheels are a +6 offset, which puts them out further, gives you a more aggressive look. But if you don't have enough clearance, that's why we're gonna level the front end. You might rub the tire against this portion. So that's why we're gonna level it out to get some more clearance there, so the client can off-road and not have any issues. But this setup in general is a more aggressive offset, which gives you a nicer stance, a wider stance for the truck. Nice. And here Jaime's pulling up with a Saleen that came in earlier this week. This thing is one of the cleanest Saleens I have seen, probably ever. I think it's a 1982 or 3? 88. Okay, I'm sorry. A client brought it in. We're gonna do some just maintenance and upkeep work. You can kind of see the tires are the original tires. So you can see the cracking on them. They could definitely be replaced. I don't know if the customer wants to though. I think you might want to keep them for originality's sake. He's not planning on driving the car, but he just wants to make sure it's running and still able to drive if he wants to. As you look around this car, it's very, very clean. All the body panels seem original. I didn't really like look at it very in depth, but they seem original. Look at how clean this thing is. Well, that wasn't it. Thank Thank you, Eric. Wow, look at that thing. So this motor came all the way into like 94, 95, right? Yeah. So this motor was used in
See, like the little cover on the distributor?
the boot.
You
See these anymore because they usually are destroyed and disintegrated by then. And you can see the original tag from Saleen. Yeah, this is actually very, very clean. All right, let's see what else we have. Well, one thing I could show you guys is the reason why it's important to make sure your exhaust, how I was mentioning like mine, the exhaust is securely fastened, is if it's not securely fastened, this is what happens. That was where it was mounted before. It broke the hanger there, and I guess they mounted it to the body as well, which is not recommended. And it broke there, broke off this hanger. Overall, the exhaust work was rather, actually very poor. Like those, that's not what you would want. That's just very, very poor quality work. But so yeah, no, now this truck's gonna get a different exhaust. So Ray's gonna figure out the exhaust and get it set to what it needs to be. This is one of the trucks that we gave updates on earlier in the week too. So it's gonna get a frame cut bumper. So what you see there is the stock intercooler that lives its life there. This customer wants a frame cut bumper. This frame, this horn is gonna have to get cut almost to like that angle, a few inches of it goes off. And the new bumper is gonna sit very close up against the car. So by doing that, that's no longer gonna be feasible, that location. So we're gonna do a front mount intercooler. So the intercooler is now gonna reside here. Go about here, here, and take up this room. So again, that's another option on these trucks is to do a front mount intercooler. You get more performance out of the intercooler because you're gonna get a bigger intercooler as opposed to this smaller one here. You're gonna get one that goes about that high and that wide. So more surface area equals better cooling capability. So this is the grill that came off the truck. The customer had a light bar installed in here, but that light bar is not gonna be able to be used any longer because of the intercooler moving and the cruise control relocation bracket that's gonna go there. So yeah, this is gonna be quite a bit more work left on this one. We'll check back in with you guys as we go through it. Okay, hold on. Let's see what my mic's doing.
There he is.
Hey.
Yanking it happen, y'all.
That's Mad Mike. He's printing, we have a commercial truck coming in for a commercial wrap. So Mad Mike is doing us a favor by plotting, scaling, and doing all that good stuff with that. And Dolfo's back here looking over the C10. And we're gonna come back here to give you an update on the Apache. So the 58 Apache that you guys saw is in for paint correction now. The bed was recently finished. So we took all these pieces of wood apart, repaired them, stained them, and then sealed them. And then now Manny is moving on to the paint correction stages. So if you remember originally, there was a lot of deep scratches in this area. And I would say 98% of them were taken out. You have a couple very, very deep ones, but unfortunately you're not going to be able to do anything about the very deep ones. But it's looking much, much, much better. And the reason why you can't do anything about the really deep ones is there's a fine balance. If you go too much, then you're going to go through the paint. So, and that would not be good. So we use a paint micrometer that tells us how much the depth of the paint is. And then we base it off that and gauge our work based off that. Do you approve?
Yes, this thing's beautiful.
Yeah, it looks great. So there's a quick walkthrough of what we have today in the shop. You saw the trucks getting ready to go off-road. You saw the Saleen that was super clean. It's really nice seeing those gems kind of come in because it's like a blast from the past. And you can see how they were built originally without anyone molesting them. And then you have the 58 Apache, where it's more of a custom restored car, and there's a lot of bits and pieces to it that are not factory, but we love it nonetheless. It looks beautiful the way it is. The color combination's awesome. And now after we redid the bed and did the paint correction, that thing's ready to go on the road, and the owners are ready to enjoy it for even longer. So I gotta go up front. I'm gonna check on my truck and get some other work done. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, comment below. I'll see you guys next time.